I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. Today, my guest is Gabrielle Botbol. She is a ethical hacker, cybersecurity expert, blogger, podcaster, former actress. She's doing a lot in the cyber community. So, Gabrielle, first off, thank you for joining me. But tell me, what's an ethical hacker? What does that mean? Are you one of the good ones?
Yes, I am. Can't you tell it by looking at me?
You don't look that dangerous. You look like a normal person working in an office.
Well, yes. So an ethical hacker, uh, we do work in offices. So it's like a cybersecurity professional who's going to be hired to test the security of a system by attacking it. So they can work for private companies or governments. And so, as an ethical hacker, what I do is I'm going to attack a target in order to find vulnerabilities. And so, this process is called pen testing. And so, it's organized in different phases.
Would say that pen testing, because that's when I was
Yeah.
researching for this episode, I saw the phrase pen testing, that you're a pen tester, but I'm thinking about this pen that I'm holding up with me. Why is it called pen testing? I have never heard that before getting ready for this episode.
Okay, so pen testing is a penetration test. So, like intrusion. So we are going to try to intrude in system and softwares and website and everything. We're going to try and by attacking those systems. And so we do this in different phases. So like we have the planning phase. So this is the phase when you take care of legal matters, because you can go and attack a target just like this, obviously, because otherwise you would be a cyber criminal. Okay, so you have, we are going to talk about the contracting things. We are going to define what is called the scope. So it's the target you are allowed to attack, like which website or which IP address or things like this. It really depends on the type of test you're going to do. And then there's another phase, the second one, that is called the discovery phase, or it's also called reconnaissance. And so we are going to gather information about the target, how does it work, what are the used technologies, and so this will help us, have more information and plan our attacks and everything. And then we have the attack phase. So we are going to attack the target based on the information we previously had, and we are going to take many notes in the process and gather proof. And so finally, we are going to do the reporting phase. So this is like producing a report with explanation and how to reproduce the flow so that people can correct it. And so, it's worth mentioning also that ethical hacker, there have a lot of multiple non-profits with volunteer hackers in them. Like, for instance, there is one called Hacker Without Borders. So this is an organization that will, ensure humanitarian cyber protection and assistance for NGOs and victims of armed conflicts and, any other situations of violence. So they will do pen tests, but they will also provide incident response and similar things. If you want to check out, I could give you the site afterwards. It's hwb.ngo. And so that's why, ethical hacker, you can find them in companies, you can find them in NGOs, you can find them in governments. So we are everywhere and we are very nice.
You're everywhere and you're very nice. But is it true you are self-taught?
Yes,
How,
yes.
how is that possible? I feel like someone needs all this education and training and go to a fancy computer science program at university and all this stuff. How can someone be self-taught and be so good at cyber warfare?
Okay, so it really depends. We have multiple profiles in the industry, but personally, in high school, I studied arts and literature to become an actress. But at home, I love to program websites about theater. And so at that time, I did not dare to go into computer science studies because my parents and my school teachers, they saw me more in this literature field. So that's why I became an actress, and on the side, I was a hotel receptionist. But my passion about programming became bigger. And on a working holiday visa in Canada 12 years ago, I had the opportunity to work in IT. And so when I came back in France, because I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm from France originally.
I think we can tell from your accent. I think we can tell.
Okay, so yes, I know it's strong accent. Okay, perfect. So when I came back in France, I decided to pass a bachelor degree in computer science. When I was working in a big company as a developer, I found myself questioning the security of the apps I delivered. So I began to do my research, to find a training, and that's how I stumbled onto pen testing, and that I found it very, very fascinating. So I wanted to become a pen tester, but there
It's funny.
was
It's the
no.
opposite. I was going to say it's so many people. I was good at programming. Well, how do I put? I wanted to do literature and acting and the arts, but my parents said I had to get a real job, so I went into engineering. Yours is the opposite, right? Like I wanted to do programming, but they made me do the arts instead. It's sort of ironic.
Yeah, in a way, because I think this is mostly because of the fact that I a woman, and so you don't think for science for girls.
Right? You don't look like the stereotype of who would be a hacker now.
Yes, definitely not. I'm surrounded by men, and I'm the only woman on my team, and so it's getting better these days. We see more and more women getting interested in the field. More and more doors are open for them as well, because let's face it, if there were no women, it's because no doors were really open. But today it's really becoming better, and so we see more women like me coming
What is
in
the
the field.
business model of being a penetration tester, ethical hacker? Is it, let's say a big company, right? Let's say I'm making it up. I'm Amazon, I'm Coca-Cola, I'm UPS, right? I want to make sure that my system is safe. I hire you out personally, or I hire your firm out. How are they paying? Is it for every bug that you find, we pay you? Is it by the hour? Is it by the project? I'm just curious what the business model is, because it's not a SaaS product, right? It's not subscription as a service. Maybe it is. Maybe you have someone on retainer every month and they keep trying to break it. But how does it work in your world?
Okay, so you have different models. You have companies who will have a security team with a team of hackers in it. And so they will be hired for the company, and they will be paid like anyone, like you, like me, on a company, like any employee. You also have a consulting company, and so they will have so yes, the company I mentioned before is going to do this for the inside of their company to ensure, like for instance, a financial institution or a bank or anything, to ensure that their own products are safe. And then you have consulting companies that will sell our services to companies who want to have security, but don't have a team of security experts, or want another view on their security from other cybersecurity experts. And so this is another. We are also going to be employees and not self-employed or anything. Sometimes they do take freelancers as well. And finally, you have the bug bounties company who will hire bug hunters. And so this is another model that is a little different. They are going to, give.
They're looking
some
for bugs
targets.
for their pay for bug or bug hunting, right?
Exactly.
I'm curious. We see BoSpar, other jobs, random independent people, right? These are just independent freelancers. They're bug hunters, and they'll send an email saying, "Hey, I found this bug. Can you send me some money?" And I never know what to do with that. I don't know if I should trust this guy, because if he's that dangerous, maybe he's going to hack our system. I don't know if we should just pay him to go away. Well, how do you handle somebody like that? Or how would you recommend a company handle someone who comes out of the blue and says, I found a bug, pay me?
Okay, so it's I think it's a little simplified as you mentioning this. It's not that because there are company that okay, so um, there are a lot of misconceptions that the public have about hacker in
Yeah, I
general.
want to get into those misconceptions. Yeah, I'd like to hear about those.
Okay, so if you look at the definition of hacker, unless if you go to a specific website, it's going to be pejorative, and you will find terms like snoop, and it's going to say that it's illegal and everything. But basically, if you look up the definition, like the MIT definition, for instance, a hacker is someone who he's going to hijack the use of a tool to do something else with it. So it is someone who is going to be curious about how a system works. So there are different type of hackers. So you have white hat, like me, also known as ethical hacker, gray hat, and black hat. So black hat are the cyber criminals. They are going to do it for personal gain or for political reasons, and so they're not they do it for really personal gain or activism or things like this. You have white hat, sorry, like me. So we find vulnerabilities legally for organization and businesses. And so also you have gray hat. So gray hat, I think I would say gray hat is a mix of both. So they're going to search for vulnerabilities and they're going to notify the owner afterwards. So it is still illegal because they did not have the authorization before. But we do see more and more businesses and governments and instances who are going to put responsible disclosure policy in place. So, for example, recently, the Quebec government, they put in place a platform with an online form to report a vulnerability. So it can even be done anonymously. And so say you were going on a website, it can happen to anyone. Like we feel like they are very shady and very strange, but it can really happen to anyone. You go to a website and you find something strange, even if you're not trying to investigate it. You will find something is strange, and you want, like when you use a website, you want your data to be safe. So what they did, for instance, the Quebec government, they put this form online, and you can say, okay, I found something strange on the platform, and I don't think it's supposed to be this way because it's not safe this way. So they will make a report and say, and the government is going to read it and correct it. So this is really it's really dear to my heart that we dissociate ethical hackers from cyber criminals, because still today people and journalists and media platforms, sometimes they use the term hackers to talk about cyber criminals. And it is something that needs to stop. Okay, there is actually a community that works for the dissociation of cyber criminals. They are called Hacking is Not a Crime. And so they have a website, which is hackingisnotacrime.org. And so on the first subject we were talking just before about the bug bounty, you have companies that will hire what we call security researcher. So they are going to be white hat hackers, and they are going to, the companies are going to put their platform online. For instance, you want to say you have a website, eric.com. So you want to put eric.com on this platform, and you want people to find vulnerabilities on your website. This way, the more vulnerabilities that are going to be discovered, the more safe you will be, because it's vulnerabilities that black hat hackers will not find, that cyber criminals will not find. So that's a way to protect you.
Real briefly, though. I just want to interrupt. So I appreciate what you said. Cyber criminals that's different from hackers. I see your MIT definition. The hacker, they're using it maybe for something other than what it was intended, but they may not necessarily be criminal in how they're using it. So I see your point that the criminals, they're doing actual criminal things. They are doing something that is a crime. They're doing something that's really bad. So, and I think you're right. When people hear the word hackers, they assume that you mean cyber criminals. That's what they assume. So getting into that part of it, who is the most likely cyber criminal? Is it a individual? Is it a small group? Or is it a government-backed, state-sponsored cyber criminal? In your experience, who is the most likely type of cyber criminal?
So cyber warfare has multiple faces. So you have disinformation, you have industrial espionage, you have cyber attacks. So it's not.
Sounds scary. Sounds like there's a lot of different ways that the bad guys can come after you.
Yeah, and so based on what we can read in research report, like for instance, according to Thales and Variant Handbook, in approximately 60 major groups of attackers analyzed, 59% of these attackers are state-sponsored groups that will often aim to steal sensitive data from targets of geopolitical interest. 26% are going to be ideologically motivated activists. So, and 20% are going to be cyber criminals who are driven by only financial gain. And in fourth position, we will have a cyber terrorist. They are going to be 5% of the group analyzed. So, I don't really have an answer for this because it is still something very hard to analyze. But there are many different cyber criminals, and so yes, 49% of them are state sponsored.
No, that's great. That's the answer I was curious about. So I'm glad you had that data. That gives me a sense, and our listeners a sense for, okay, these are the diversity of the types of cyber criminals that are out there. So I'm curious, in your penetration testing, working with companies, big brands, what is the most likely vulnerability? What is the first place that you look at that they are most likely going to screw up that's going to allow you to get into the system?
So for instance, when we test a website, there's actually this very interesting group community called OWASP, and so they have a top 10 of the most found vulnerabilities on websites. And so it changes, I think every 2 or 3 years, they update it. And we still find a lot of way to inject code. So I'm going to say, I'm trying to be able to so that everyone can understand, because so when you are able to inject code, it means basically that you are able to have some sort of access to the server behind the application. So this way you get a way inside the company. We still often find these online, but there are very different ways, and websites are like companies are getting more and more secure, and they are doing their best to be very careful with this. I feel like security is getting better.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, my guess is you've been doing this for almost a decade now. The companies have to be more secure now than they were 10 years ago. And it's got to be harder to do your job because all the places that used to be vulnerable are most likely not vulnerable now. So do you find it's actually much more difficult to be able to, put your code on someone else's server? Is it harder? Are you having to get more creative for how you try to break into these systems? Is there a standard process that you have to go through all of it? Is it automated? Can you have a computer just automate and try to go through all these ways to break in? I'm curious what the modern workflow looks like for you.
Okay, so I won't say it's harder, and I won't say it's easier. It's really different from targets to targets. But what I would say is, so what we do is we are going to uh, uh, launch a scan sometimes to. So this is the automatic part you were mentioning. So we have tools specifically that will scan the website, but we cannot rely only on automatic tools. We need a human to understand the concepts and to verify, because sometimes they can have false positives and everything. So we have to check that all the vulnerabilities that were found automatically are actual vulnerabilities. So sometimes we can launch scans. It's not all the time, because we want to be really thorough with this. Like, it's not an automatic tool. Still today is not going to be able to replace a human. So we can use both, but we definitely need the human part in this. Except if you would just want, sometimes a company will just ask for a vulnerability assessment, and so this way we are just going to launch an automatic scan and give back the report, and that will be it. But most of the time, we really want, if you want to do a pen test, you have to check every vulnerability that was found, and check that it was actual vulnerabilities, and see how far you could go, and make a proper report saying, okay, because at the beginning of the report, you have a long part for executive of the company, so that they can, really grasp what could happen if the vulnerabilities stayed. Like, what would be the way for an attacker to exploit this, and to have a foot in the company. So yeah, it really depends. But we really see today, and like, for instance, the situation in Ukraine, it has shown to us how important it is for a state to protect its vital organizations. Because I remember from my first summer school in Lviv in Ukraine, one of our teachers explained that when their power grid was attacked at the time, they were able to control the breakers. So it was still something manual that was helping them to make the situation back again. So it's precisely at a time when all our states have made their digital transition. We no longer have manual option, and that's why it's very important to be prepared for different attack scenarios, because this could really destabilize. Sorry, it's coming in French. Destabilize states as strongly as land war.
You brought up Ukraine. I'm glad you did, because I wanted to ask about that. Has your work changed at all? Has the types of attacks, possible security vulnerabilities, has that perspective changed this year with that war? And we always hear about Russian state-sponsored cyber criminals. We know there's cyber warfare happening across the globe. What's been your perspective and your experience on this past few months?
So you would really need someone on the incident response team to answer to this question. But what I can say on my side is that Ukraine is strong in terms of cybersecurity, because they were trained previously, like, for instance, what I mentioned before. So this is really this kind of situation, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's anything, we really see the importance of cybersecurity.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I'm curious also the cybersecurity media space, right? You're an influencer, you're doing your things out there. It's very niche, and some of it's secret. Companies don't necessarily want everyone to know what's happening because you expose yourself. So how does a cybersecurity influencer stand out, expand their reach, talk about the work that they're doing without getting in trouble the companies that they're working for? It's a fine balance.
Yes, well, we can, I mean, it's important for me, and it's important for a lot of my colleagues as well. We want to protect people. We want to protect our democracy. and our states and our governments and to keep our rights and everything. So we are doing our best to inform people. We really are trying to really inform and make people aware. I think it's better this day, but I feel like the human aspect part could be worked on better. We have to train humans on how to stay safe online, in order to reach a cyber peace. And so, in my opinion, and it's my opinion only, cybersecurity needs to be a popular culture. For example, there has to be an educational system in place from the earliest age for cybersecurity. Like, this is something that could make a difference. And this does not concern only companies. It concerns you, it concerns me, it concerns governments, families, and like every citizen of the planet. This is the best way to reach cyber peace and protect our democracy. Education. It's something, it's always the best tool to stay safe in any situation, whether it's cybersecurity related or not.
What do you do personally in terms of your own technology? Are you doing, VPNs? Are you using certain kinds of devices? Are you using the cloud in a certain way? Password managers, anti-trackers, location trackers? Like, what are the things that you do to keep yourself personally safe? Because my guess is everything. You know more. You know too much, right? I mean, Internet of Things. Do you have connected homes, right? Like you have a lot of houses where they have the thermostats and the camera systems. It's all going to the cloud, and who knows where that stuff goes. Like, what are the things that you do, and what are the things that you don't do?
So there are simple actions that anyone can take to make their security better. Like, for instance, using strong and different passwords from each platform. So they can use, a password manager if they have a hard time to remember it, because we have more and more platforms. So it's always useful to have a tool that will remember this for us. I also usually recommend passphrase because they are longer. They are longer than password, and they are easier to remember. Like, for instance, it can be a poem you like. It can be a sentence. It just has to be long and have special characters and numbers, and it has to be different. Like, do not use the same password for different platforms. Also, something that is very convenient and that adds a layer of security is the multi-factor authentication. So I really recommend to activate it whenever it is possible. And well, you mentioned social media before. I know it's hard because they are very present in our life, but the best advice I can give is to limit as much as possible to share personal information or personal life information about the personal life, because it's a way, if you have, for instance, the name of your pet or the name of your I don't know, anything. It's a way people who are going to probably find cyber criminals would be able to find information and try out a password or things like this. So I don't have the ideal solution for anybody. Just be careful with what you say online. Like, do not say personal things. But I think it's the best way. Be careful with personal information and use strong passwords. That's the best advice I can give.
That's good. I mean, that's coming from you. If that's the number one thing people should remember, I think that's really important, right? For people to hear that and think, okay, that's what she's saying. So if you have time, if you have 5 minutes today, start working on that, right? That's the most important thing that you can do. Gabrielle, this has been really fascinating. I'm glad we got to connect your path, right? From artist, right? And literature, and now you're doing ethical hacking, right? This is the white hat hacking. I appreciate the different definitions that you gave and what it's like being in the inside and some of the stories that you shared. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad we had this conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.